Welcome to another episode of Sensational Customer Experiences. This is the show where we explore the idea that everything your customer knows about you is a direct result of input from their five senses. It's what they see, hear, taste, smell, and touch that determines how much they love you. And now here's your host and consumer experience expert, Wes Miller.
And I'm here today with Ron Gay, who's the president of YCC. He is a specialist that is known for best utilizing every square inch of space that he is given, as he works exclusively to design jewelry retail stores. Because of his ability to utilize every square inch, he ends up increasing sales and better shopping experiences for his clients. And I had the opportunity to check out his website, which I would encourage you to do as well. That website is www.yccltd.com. And if you do nothing else, go on there and check out some of the pictures of some of the different stores that he has designed and created and put together, and you're going to see jewelry stores like you've never seen before. These are not your typical shopping mall type jewelry stores. These are really different, unique. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. I'm going to let Ron talk about some of that. But Ron, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is actually the first podcast I've ever done, so I'm kind of new at this experience. You know, usually, most of my job is just talking to people and seeing what they want and trying to give them exactly what they want. I think it's important when you're designing stores and helping people out, you really need to tailor and do things what they want instead of just a lot of designers and showcase manufacturers. They just want to build a standard showcase with standard understock and not really pay attention to what the customer wants. As a matter of fact, I'm just completing a store in Lacey, Washington right now, Clue Jewelers, and they had a rather unique request from me. They were trying to do some interior case displays, and they couldn't get anyone to even design what they wanted to see, so I was tasked with designing all the elements and doing the drawings so that another company could do all the interior case displays for their cases, and I didn't think it was that big a deal, but apparently it was. They're very pleased. We opened that store we're going to open it in July. They're really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to being done with it. But they had some rather unique things. They had a lot of understock requirements, and we had a lot of different size drawers and other things that they specifically wanted for specific items. So we went through every showcase and every opening in the lower understock to tailor it to exactly what they wanted rather than what would be easy to build. That's one of the ways that we do things a little bit differently with my company than a lot of design companies. I'm not going to necessarily say the way I do it is the best way. It's just the way I do it.
And that actually brings me to one of my questions that I knew I wanted to ask you about, because it's so obvious when you go to your website that you are very unique in the kind of creations that you come up with. And rather than talk about that, I wanted to get it right from you, the answer to this question of, what makes you unique? If you were to be asked by someone thinking about designing a store, why would I hire you over just anybody else? What makes you unique? And I know you can speak to that because I've seen some of the unique creations on your site.
Well, I think one of the big things that I do that a lot of other companies don't do, typically when you hire a designer or an architect to do your space, they come in and have an interview with you, take a look at the stores that you've had, get all your ideas together. Then they go in and they go back to their office and they start designing, and they get your store all designed, and they send you a completed set of prints and say, here it is. The problem I see with that is, number one, what if they've gone down a path that is just really not where you wanted to be? So what I do that's a little bit different, I go through and draw up preliminary plans and get kind of a floor layout, and then I'll send it to the customer in just that preliminary form. We might go through 20 or 30 different fairly major change layouts before we actually start finishing the the drawings so that we can actually get bids. But I feel it's much more important to let the customer have a say in everything just so that they will end up where they want to be ultimately. Because when you get right down to it, I'm going to finish a job, I'm going to build the cases, I'm going to install them, and I've had stores that I've never seen them again. I've never seen the cases again. Try to get back once the store is open because I like to see them open doing business, but I don't have to live there. These people that are having me design stores, they have to live with whatever I've designed for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So I want it to be something they want, not something I want, because I just think that's more important.
One of my favorite stores that I saw on the website was the one that looks like a diner, that has kind of a seating and kind of a diner type arrangement.
Yeah, that's Mark's Jewelers. They're in Montgomerysville, Pennsylvania, which is north of Philadelphia. That was actually a very interesting job. It was the largest square foot store I've done to date. It was 17,000 feet on the sales floor, and he actually had the idea of the Diamond Diner, and very intelligent guy. His name is Jim Bruslowski. When he came in originally and we talked about it, he came to me and he says, I'm going to buy a 25,000 square foot warehouse and make it into a jewelry store. And quite frankly, I told him that sounded like the worst idea I'd ever heard, and I just didn't think it was going to work. And so about a year later, he came back to me again and we started talking, and he gave me an 83-page wish list for his store. It went out for a design competition. Well, I say design competition. There was 3 or 4 designers involved. He selected me because of the way I treated certain things. Biggest thing, I think, was the lounge that I created. It seats 32, which sounds rather large for a jewelry store, but he's got a rather unique concept in that he will loan this space out to anybody that wants to use it for a training or anything else free of charge, because when they're done with their training or their meeting or whatever, then they're in a jewelry store, and it's a way to get customers in. And people that are going to trainings and going to meetings, Rotary clubs, Kiwanis, fundraisers, these are typically people that have more disposable money. And when you are in I've pretty much got to call jewelry a luxury business, it's all disposable income because it's not like a staple of life. He came up with a rather unique idea of making it feel, a lot of stores have private showing rooms that get you in kind of a small area, maybe 50, 60, 70 square feet, and it's you and your customer, and you're kind of enclosed in a space, and people feel a little bit threatened. But when you're in this Diamond Diner, you're in a much more relaxed area. He told me that the first Christmas he had it open, he has 7 Diamond Diners and a dining table that seats 6. And he said there was a waiting line to get in there to sit in the Diamond Diner to buy diamonds, which I would have really liked to have been there to see it. It was a unique situation, and I haven't repeated it since, but I hope to one of these days.
That's interesting. You even used the expression that his goal was to make it feel relaxed compared to other jewelry stores, and that really ties into this whole sensory experience piece that we're always talking about here at Podcast, when we talk about how the senses are impacted by the experience. So I appreciate that expression of how it's made to make you feel when you go there.
Well, another thing I'd like to kind of point out, and this is kind of a signature thing I do in the stores that I design and build, and most of the time when I explain it to people, they really pick up on it and really like it. One of my big pet peeves when I go into a location, especially a store, I'll walk in and I'm greeted by people that are sitting down at a workstation, like in the center of an island of a showcase, and they're sitting there working. They greet you and they're cordial enough and they're very polite and everything's nice. But I feel like that's lazy. I almost feel like I'm not even worth them standing up for. To combat this, all of our workstations, and we have a lot of workstations usually up toward the front of the store to try to keep people from congregating at the back of the store near the cash wrap, which is what a lot of people do. But I build all of the workstations as stand-up workstations. And if you have a person that has a problem with standing all day, you can buy them a tall stool to sit on, and they appear to be standing. And I just think that's a lot better image to put out to your customer than to have someone sitting down that has to either stand up. It just doesn't look like they're eager to help you when they're sitting down. That's just one of my pet peeves, and I've let some of my pet peeves flow over into my design just because it's what I believe in.
So you utilize your experience as a customer in thinking through how you're going to design a space.
A lot of it, yes. And again, it's when I walk into a store, I don't want everybody at the back of the store so that somebody has to come up and greet me. As a matter of fact, we worked with a store down in Florence, Alabama. We actually had a gal that would stand up as a greeter by the front door, and she had an iPad attached to her arm to direct people where they needed to go depending on what kind of jewelry they wanted. And I worked with the owner about that, and we thought it was kind of a cool idea, and I believe that they're still using that concept most of the time. I think, when times are, when it's really slow parts of the day, I don't think they've got somebody necessarily stationed up there because that can get kind of expensive. Another thing I've seen done in stores that's a very good thing is someone will greet you, and the first thing they'll say is, "Can I get you a drink? Can I get you a water? Can I get you anything?" And it's kind of nice being greeted in that way and not feel like, oh, well, I've got to get involved in the negotiations before they're going to offer me a water or a soda or whatever. Some stores even go so far as to have wine or champagne, and most locations, if you're giving it away for free, you don't have to have a liquor license. But that's a local problem that I can't necessarily address. A lot more stores that I've seen are going to typically we call them coffee bars that may or may not have alcohol, but it's a place that people can hang out and feel comfortable. Usually there's a big screen TV, and a lot of times the TVs are not playing advertisements. They're not playing anything to do with the jewelry store. They're playing sports events. They're playing one of the cable news channels, something other than is related to the store. It used to be, every bit of information going on in the store had to do with the store, but I think people are learning that it's better to have more things to make it look like you have a larger scope than just what's going on in the store. And we do a lot of stores that have USB charging ports, places for people to charge their iPads, their phones, whatever. As a matter of fact, I've done several that have a rather large bar area that people can come in and have a coffee and work on their computer if they want. And that's totally out of the realm of jewelry stores. But a lot of times a couple will come in and one of the two need to be doing something else while the other one's shopping. Not everybody is a happy, engaged couple that are shopping together. They may be there for a variety of reasons, but I think you have to cater to everybody for anything they want to do, pretty much. Yeah.
So you're really describing a complete customer experience that we talk a lot about with the You Can Sense It program. In fact, if you recall our checklist, our sensational experience checklist, some of the things that are on that checklist actually include: do you have the charging stations? Do you have the kind of refreshments that you're passing out to people? Again, tapping into the taste senses and just the whole experiential process of shopping. It's not just about going and picking up a product and paying and going home. It's really about having an experience when you're out.
No, because honestly, if somebody just wants to buy a product and be done with it, they can get almost anything they want off the internet.
I was going to say, I think that's what Amazon's for now,
including including jewelry. There's it's kind of hard to buy a big rock off the internet, but it can be done. Another thing I want to point out, when you walk into a store, and this is something most people don't realize, but it is very sensory loaded, is there's a phrase that's called sensible heat. And what sensible heat is, you can take a thermometer into a jewelry store and set it up, and the thermometer may say it's 75 degrees in there. But I'll guarantee any customer that walks into a 75-degree jewelry store thinks it's hot. That's because your skin is telling you the temperature, but your eyes are adding to the fact, and they see all that brightness, and they say, oh, bright sun, it must be hot in here. And so you almost have to have the stores to the point of your employees being cold in order for the customers to be comfortable as they walk in and walk out. It seems a little bit counterproductive, but it is a true statement. And there's actually, when mechanical engineers do mechanical engineering, there is a quotient in there for sensible heat based on the wattage per square foot. Most people think it's hooey. Technically, it is kind of hooey, but it's what the customer believes, and that's all that matters.
So it's about that perception.
Yes.
And perception is real.
Yes, it really is. And if you have a customer coming in that in their head it's hot in the store, that is a detraction from their shopping experience and quite frankly, their purchasing experience. Mm-hmm. And the more comfortable a customer is, the more likely they are to buy things. Great example of that, and I've never quite figured this out. When people go on cruises, they buy stuff they would never buy at home. And a lot of times, especially jewelry included, they're paying more for it on a cruise, and they think they're getting it cheaper because they're out of the country. And anyway, so it has to do with the comfort level of the customer. The more comfortable the customer is, I believe, the more likely they are to spend the money.
Which is an important aspect of why, and that's the main reason why it's so important to make sure we've got our customers' sensory experience in mind. I have a couple of questions. One is, what's the hardest thing you ever had to plan? What was the most difficult?
Now, there's a couple of different items there. There's difficult to plan it, but then there's also difficult to draw it. Probably the most challenging thing I ever designed, simply because it had so many new concepts, was Mark's Jewelers, which had the Diamond Diner in it. Had several pretty off-the-wall concepts. He wanted a store that he could rearrange. He felt that people coming in want to see something new. They want to explore and think they find something new. And so all of his cases are modular, and they can go together in a variety of different shapes and islands. They're all front access showcase, which is side-by-side selling. And he's got about 100 of these different showcases. And to my knowledge, he has rearranged his store 8 times since I installed it 3 years ago. So that part of the concept, it was a very long process. From the time I started with him till the time the store was open was 2.5 years. So that was a very long, difficult process. Now, the hardest thing that I ever put down on paper to try to express what I was wanting was Gunderson Jewelers. Their tagline is the most unique store in the universe. And when I first walked into one of his stores, it was kind of sensory overload for me because it was so eclectic. If you'll go onto the website and look it up, it's on my website, Gunderson Jewelers in Omaha. And as a matter of fact, we're just finishing the design on one in Fargo for him right now. But it had so many different things going on. It was difficult to draw, but it was also very exciting. And I've had some difficult clients, but we struggled through it all, and they all became happy customers. So that's pretty much the answer to that.
Well, thanks for that. And I will tell you, the website is an amazing array of interesting retail experiences that you've designed. I'm going to mention that again for our audience. It's www.ycc www.yccltd.com. I'll repeat that. It's www.yccltd.com. And it truly is. You go on there, you're going to see some amazing imagery of stores and how they're laid out and how they can definitely impact the sensory experience. Moving on, I wanted to find out, what's the first impression that you want to give people when they come into one of your design stores? When they walk into a YCC design store, what's that first impression that you want them to experience?
I'm not going to say I want them to be overwhelmed is the wrong word. A little bit shocked, maybe. A little bit the feeling that, wow, this is really cool. I don't know. It's kind of hard to put into words. I guess I don't really know. I guess just cool. My first impression when I walk into places is, I guess maybe I want them to see something unique, something they maybe haven't seen before. And obviously, once they've been in the store, it's no longer unique. So, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of unique things through the years, and I guess unique is the best word.
So as you talk about doing a lot of different things throughout the years, what do you consider your greatest achievement?
I would have to say one of my greatest stores that I ever did was Ware Jewelers in Auburn, Alabama. I did not do the drawings on the building itself. We actually tore down their building. It's in downtown Auburn on Toomer's Corner. It's right across from the university. We got into it, and we designed a building that looked a lot like the university buildings on campus, and then we added a third floor with a balcony so you can actually overlook the campus and Toomer's Corners, which was kind of exciting. And just the entire interior and the entire space. The downstairs was all curved glass, the sales floor area. The second floor was corporate offices, repair, warehousing. The exciting thing was there we utilized a lot of building materials from the old building that we tore down in the old showcases to outfit all of the corporate offices upstairs in furniture made out of reclaimed material from the old building. And we actually took the old vault door that dated from, I believe it was from the 1930s, and we actually used it as the door of one of the private showing rooms. And it was just a very cool experience, and I basically could pretty much do anything I wanted. I'd done several stores for them at that time, and it was just a stellar project.
Again, another example of not your typical shopping mall jewelry store. And I've seen pictures of that one on the website.
Yes.
I recalled because I had some friends that went to Auburn, and so that kind of, when I saw the city, I said, let me check this out. So I happened to recall seeing that. On that same line, what's your greatest regret?
Boy, that's a tough one. I'd say my greatest regret was probably I didn't move to Alaska. But that's a personal thing. Probably in the business is that I didn't discover jewelry stores and designing them a lot earlier in my career. I didn't get into it till it was about 1980. Of course, back then, nobody would pay attention to anything I had to say because I was a young whippersnapper and didn't know anything. It's surprising how much more credibility you get when you get a little bit of gray and white hair. So I guess my biggest regret is I just didn't move into it earlier. We were in residential construction before I got into commercial and jewelry stores. And I guess, my greatest regret would be that I hadn't got into it earlier, but it's been great since I've been in it.
Seems like you're doing some fantastic things. One of the things that you showed me before we got started here was one of the ways that you communicate to potential clients the work that you can do, and it is the flash drive that you hand out to people at shows and potential clients. This is a really unique, very unique way of distributing information. What it is, it's a flash drive, USB drive that is made from wood, has your logo on it, and it's really something that as flash drives go, this is one that even if I wasn't interested in the pictures of the projects you feature on here, I would be interested in having this flash drive. I can just see this is a sensory experience just holding this wooden flash drive. Tell me about your thoughts on this.
What we tried to do, we were looking for giveaways at shows and things. One of the problems is, and I found this early on when I was designing, I would have to burn a CD or something or a DVD to have enough space to burn on 300 or 400 high-def pictures. And, of course, that was back before there were really flash drives available that were affordable. And so I'd have to burn one of those. I'd have to send it to the people. Now I have these, and I load the pictures on myself. I could have a flash drive company do it, but since we're always adding stores, even if I have a flash drive that's already loaded, I can just load another store on it if I want, which is kind of nice. And, it keeps taking up more and more room on the flash drive, but I don't really care because once people have this flash drive and they've looked at the pictures and used it for whatever it is they want to use it for, they can erase all the pictures and then they've got a flash drive to use for themselves. And all of our giveaways that we do at shows and things, we have tried to make them things that people will actually use and keep with them. And it's not that I really believe that one day we give away these little tiny LED flashlights that go on a keychain. It's not that I believe that somebody's going to click on this light, to find their way into their house or find where to put the key and see my logo and says, "Oh, I had to buy a store." I don't necessarily believe that that's going to happen, but I've had people come back year after year and say, "Wow, that flashlight's great. Can you give me another one of those?" And it's just a way to stay in people's minds. And I just think it's a good idea. The more things that you can give people that they'll actually use in a tactile way is just going to keep you in their heads more.
So it's about making that memorable first impression.
Yeah, I guess.
With an emphasis on memorable.
Yeah.
And obviously, if it's going to be memorable, it better be good.
Yes.
So that's why I think that using a wood USB is so much better and different than just your typical plastic USB flash drive.
Well, and we use wood simply because we're kind of a wood industry. We build a lot of things out of wood products. Although since we build a lot of showcases that are plastic laminate, maybe we should have plastic flash drives.
I'd stick with the wood. I think the wood is definitely, and it's got your logo on there and your contact information. In fact, is it okay if I share that contact information?
Sure.
If anybody would like to reach out to you, if you want to call Ron, he's got a phone number on here. I'm just going to put it out there, Ron. So be prepared if someone calls. It's 913-226-3763. Again, the phone number is 913-226-3763. And he also has the website on here, yccltd.com. Now, I always ask everybody a fun sensory question when we have our interviews. Are you ready for a fun sensory question?
Sure.
So my fun sensory question is, what food best describes your personality? That would come from our taste senses, but what food best describes your personality?
Diet Pepsi.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, I kind of got hooked on Diet Pepsi probably about 30 years ago, and anybody that knows me pretty much always sees me with a Diet Pepsi in my hand. As a matter of fact, on Jewelers Helping Jewelers, which I'm sure a lot of the people that are listening to this are probably members of that perhaps, when I did a layout up in Lacey, Washington for Clue Jewelers, he posted a bunch of pictures of me with Diet Pepsis in my hand while I was laying out his store. So it's just something that it's just been a part of my life for a long time.
As they say, you are what you drink?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
And that brings us to the segment of the podcast that we refer to as Now That Makes Sense to Me. And this is where we ask our guests to tell us one or two strategies that they can share with the audience that will help them develop their You Can Sense It customer experience. I know I've heard you talk a lot about different strategies that you recommend. Would you be willing to share a couple of those strategies with our audience?
Sure. I hate to say this, but a lot of the things I do, and most people probably wouldn't own up to this, but I will. I go around and I travel quite a bit, and I see a lot of things, and I see things that are cool. I say, I could do something like that, or I could use something like that in my design. And, I've always got my cell phone with me, so I'll take a picture of it. And unfortunately, a lot of times I'll go through my phone and my pictures and say, why did I take a picture of that? And sometimes it comes back to me and sometimes it doesn't. But the way I look at it is most people do plagiarize things in design. That's why there are whole areas that have names that people just design it over and over again. It could be classic, it could be contemporary, it could be something else, colonial, Cape Cod. I mean, nobody really does anything unique in Cape Cod or anything like that. It all has certain elements. More what I'm talking about is like I'll see things in an airport that are just really incredibly cool because they've got tons of money and tons of space. Unfortunately, a lot of those things don't work well in smaller jewelry stores, or people don't want to spend the kind of money I must know it costs. But another reason that I like seeing things is because I figure if somebody else has done it, it's doable. A lot of times things get drawn that the people that drew it don't really have any idea how to make it happen. They just think it's a cool drawing. That's all well and good, but it doesn't do any good to draw something that's cool that's going to cost too much money to produce or be unproducible. And I see it all the time. People will draw something out by hand and say, we really like this layout. And then when I start doing scale on it or something, somebody sent me a hand drawing of something they thought would be cool. And there was like 2 foot between showcases where the customer was supposed to walk. And I'm like, well, your design's cool, but it doesn't meet ADA. There's not enough space for customers. Doesn't matter how cool it is if it doesn't work. And so that's one of the reasons that I do pay a lot of attention when I'm out and about. I'm out here in Vegas right now, and I'm sure that walking around I'm going to see some new things that I'll take pictures of that I'm sure will end up in a design somewhere.
So there you have it from the designer. Take your face away from your smartphone and instead look at other things and use the smartphone to capture the image as opposed to just being stuck looking at everyone else's images. So really it's about paying a lot of more attention to your surroundings and what you see and what's out there.
Yeah,
and looking to that for your inspiration.
There's a whole world out there, and I see so many people, they're walking around staring at their phone and trying to experience the world through their smartphone rather than experiencing the world in reality. I mean, it's so much better.
Excellent. So I think that is some great advice. Anything else you'd like to share with us today, Ron?
No, I think I've pretty well covered most of my philosophy in design. I hope it's been helpful for someone, and, we'll be glad to help anybody out that needs help.
Well, this has been an amazing interview. I've definitely gotten some definite insights, particularly the idea about the temperature and the, what did you call it again?
Sensible heat.
Sensible heat. That is an important concept that makes sense, because I know when you were talking about it, I realized that sometimes it can be cool, but if it's really bright or there's a lot of sunlight shining in, you have this idea that it's hotter than what it might really be. To everyone out there, I want to invite you again to go check out Ron's website. Even if you're not in the jewelry business, even if you're not in retail, definitely go and take Ron's advice, and that is to look at some things take it in and experience it. That's something you'll be able to do at his website and get to be inspired by some of the different unique ideas and creations that he has created. As I said at the top of the show, this is not a shopping mall jewelry store experience. These are definitely some different types of stores, and I've been thrilled to be here today, and I really thank you for being willing to spend some time with me and share your insight with our listeners.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
And there you have it, another interview with an expert in the area of sensory experience. Ron gave us some great tips on how to create sensational customer experiences. I'd encourage you, go back, listen to the show again, go to our website, that's sensationalcustomerexperiences.com, refer to the show page, look at the notes. We've jotted down some of the ideas that Ron has shared. Encourage you to do that, and I look forward to having you tune into our next episode next week. Again, remember, when you can sense it, your customers can too.
For free tips, resources, and information, visit sensationalcustomerexperiences.com, your premier experience brand brought to you by Training for Results, located in the sensory capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Until next time, remember, if you can sense it, your customers can too.